Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing the Malice of Light Adventures from Twin Tail Studios. The Malice of Light Adventures is a 1 to 4 player dungeon crawler game in which you'll be going through a sequence of dungeons before facing off against the final boss. This here is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. Additionally, this channel is sponsored by Allplay, more about them at the end of the video. In the Malice of Light Adventures, you're going to be controlling 1 to 4 characters. You can play as true solo, you can play as two-handed solo, or 3 or 4, or just a regular cooperative game, as you take control of the different adventures with the different playstyle, and then dive into a series of 2 encounters as you try to level up and prevent the boss from leveling up before facing off against the boss in the final encounter. I mentioned already this is a prototype. That means I only have access to 2 of the adventures as well as 1 of the bosses. Some of the components are different. I have tokens instead of miniatures. This, I believe, will be a double layered board, so check out the crowdfunding campaign to get a better sense of all the components. I just have the 2 adventures and the final boss with these components to go through. But in the game, what you're going to do is you're going to be going through these adventures. Your goal is to level up before facing off against the final boss, who hopefully you have maintained and managed to prevent them from leveling up as much as possible. I have the Runes of Arcath over here, and then on the other side, I'm going to have the Hollowed Ravine over here, and you can choose any 2 adventures. I believe there's I think there's at least 10, I could be wrong. Double check the campaign page. There's a lot of adventures to go through. You pick any 2 and you can go through them in any order that you want. Then you'll be facing off against the boss over here. Right now I have Fendra's Lair. I'll be facing off against the boss and the last mothers over here, the final mothers in that boss, in that scenario there. But the general idea is on your turn, you're going to go through taking your actions with your characters, having the enemies react as part of your turn, from there going into the event phase before repeating the cycle until the end of Act 1, then Act 2, then Act 3. On your turn, you're going to do 3 things. You have a move, you have an action, and you have a ploy, all on this card over here. Movement is pretty straightforward. You move from one area to an adjacent area. It's pretty easy to go as far as just counting the areas, making sure you're mindful of the walls as you wander around trying to accomplish your goals. The actions are going to be the meat of all the things you do. You have an attack action over here, as well as an explore action, and a prepare action. Attacking is exactly what it sounds like. This is how you deal with the threats that are facing off against you. Characters are going to have enemies in their threat area. So for example, I can go ahead and move over here and then face off against the Arcathian Commoner. Obviously, you can attack any enemy regardless of who that enemy is engaged with. When you attack, what you're going to do is you're going to roll dice equal to the number of unlocked symbols. I mentioned you're going to be leveling up in this game. A big part of it is finding the ways to, finding these tokens over here, as you're going to have different upgrade bonuses, different ways to upgrade your character. Removing locks is going to be a key part of it. Right now, I'll go ahead and roll 1 die, because I have 1 die available, plus I'm actually doing with this character, so I'm going to do a smite action, rolling 1 die. After this action, choose a hero within range 1 to gain 1 focus, and then they're going to be facing off back against me. I'll roll a die over here, and I got 1 hit to their nothing, basically. They did not roll that over there, which would fight back against me. So with my 1 hit, I'll deal 1 damage. They have 3 damage, but they also have 1 armor, which means unfortunately I won't be able to do anything to this particular enemy on this attack. On the other hand, what I did get to do is I did get to go ahead and give a focus to my ally within range 1. That's a basic attack action. You roll dice, hopefully you power up your action as you go, which means in the beginning of the game, you might want to race around and find some upgrades, because 1 die is often very, especially an attack action, 1 die does not feel like you're getting a lot done, but there is focus. Focus is something that will let you spend this to add successes to your roll, so building up your focus can be very helpful. Additionally, there's going to be the guard action over here. This will prevent you against negative effects. For example, if the enemy had tried to attack back, dealing their attack damage back to me, this would at least prevent it. And again, these will also, unused successes will contribute to improving your focus, and unused defense will contribute to improving your block, which again can help you on future turns. There's also going to be the crit over here, which can be utilized for certain cards. For example, this crit can be used to power this card. Each hero within range 1 may heal 2, or alternatively, you can just count it as a success and a reroll, basically an exploding die, which the Sadler brothers, the designer of this game, like to throw in their games, and frankly, I like to roll those exploding dice. That's going to be a basic attack action. Attack the enemy, trying to take them out, because enemies are going to enter in the game. You want to go ahead and try to deal with them as fast as you possibly can, with the caveat that you also want to level up as fast as you possibly can. That brings us to the explore action. The Explore action is going to allow you to draw search cards from this search deck over here. Also worth noting, whenever you defeat enemies, you will draw a search card as well in those combats. One search card maximum, regardless of how many enemies you defeated in a roll. And then you're also going to be using those the Explore action to also deal with the peril on the scheme cards over here. Schemes are going to be unique to the specific scenario you're playing as, and they have ways that they get in the way. For example, over here, all these tokens over here right now represent routes that these cards are going to impact with us, hurting us, as well as the events of this deck will hurt us as well. So you have all these routes we need to deal with, and we have the scheme cards themselves. If you're in an area with a scheme card, you can start removing this for each success, and also removing the card as well once there are no tokens left on that card. That's important because of the fact that the boss is going to be leveling up at the end of each act based on the scheme cards you were not able to remove. They have their own deck of cards over here that correlate to the different scheme tokens over there, and for each scheme card you do not remove, they'll be leveling up to the level 2 or 3 version. Basically, when you get into the final scenario, the boss has these 3 cards, and they can be level 1, 2, or 3, depending on how much time you actually spent dealing with the scheme cards in each act. That's going to be the Explore action. And then the Prepare action is going to help you refresh cards, as well as gaining Guard or Focus, these tracks over here. Those are going to be the 3 core actions you do. So again, you have a Move action, you have one of these 3 actions, either attacking, preparing, setting yourself for the future, or exploring to get search cards and deal with the schemes. Or then you also have a Ploy, where you can do one of the following. Run, where you can move an additional area, helping you navigate around the board a little faster, especially once you start clearing up these corners. And then from there you have Healing 2 and refreshing a card, or Searching, either claiming a discovery token in your area or drawing a search card. That's another way to get more search cards in addition to defeating enemies or to exploring. These tokens over here, these discovery tokens, they're going to be the various upgrades you have. This one's going to allow players to draw 2 cards from the relic deck, picking one of those cards and then shuffling the other back into the deck. These cards are going to go into your hand, and you can exhaust them to utilize the card at any point, and you can get them back through either the Ploy over here, where you rest and refresh a card, or the Prepare action over here, where you can pull back cards as well. That's going to be this one. This one over here is going to help you unlock tokens on your die. Each player is going to select one die, and whenever you activate these, all players benefit from them. So if I unlock this, each player, maybe they go ahead and unlock a Smite action, and they go ahead and deal with the evasion in order to help them with their exploring and dealing with the scheme cards. And then lastly, I'm going to have to find it. Oh, there we go. Lastly, we have relic cards. You just draw the top card of your relic deck. You have fewer relic cards, but they're also cooler. And you have these other relics that, again, you can exhaust this. Play this card after performing a ploy. You may move. This helps you get around the board. We have Maiden's Wrath. Play this card before your Smite action. This action gains Pierce, and you may add an attack, add a success to the result of this action. Basically, of these 3 different token types, one is going to let you roll more dice on different types of actions, and the others are going to draw cards, either talent or relic cards, into your hand. That's the basic arc of what you're doing. At the end of your turn, you're going to go ahead and draw an event card over here, and that's going to have you putting new enemies in play, drawing cards from the specific act, placing their tokens onto the board on various spawn zones, and having more enemies you're going to have to deal with as they harass you across the board, and then additionally, activating the specific scheme card from that act. That's basically the cycle. When you're done with all of this, when you're done with Act 1, you're going to go to Act 2. Everything gets a little harder. You're dealing with harder enemies from the Act 2 deck. You start with more tokens on these scheme cards. And then when you're done with Act 2, you're going to go to the final boss scenario, where you're going to set up the boss, again, upgrading their cards as necessary. They're also going to have their own cards over here. They're going to be acted a little differently. You're going to have kind of boss cards that are going to be engaged with the players. These cards for the boss actions have their own health on them, and they'll be engaged with the players, representing the boss attacking the players, while also having their boss's own event deck. And unlike Act 1 and 2, where the event deck is the timer on the round, in Act 3, the event deck keeps cycling until either you defeat the boss or the characters die. That is how you play through the Malice of Light Adventures, which means it's time for my review of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like. And I mentioned it already, but exploding dice. Exploding dice are always fun, even when they don't explode, unfortunately. I mean, you have a 1 in 6 chance, but I probably should get one now. No, there we go. 2 successes, a success, an exploding die, get another explode. Oh no, a shield. That's 4 successes, because it's exploded, plus a shield. That's a very strong attack to take out most enemies. The dice can be incredibly satisfying once you start ramping up. I will say the early game, when you're only rolling 1 die in an attack action, and the enemies are slowly chasing you around the board, harassing you, because we didn't talk about it extensively, but the enemies have 2 values. They have their attack value, if they are responding to what you're doing, But then they also have their own action sequence where they'll go through the little action pattern on the card, moving around, inflicting damage, having other special effects to hurt your block or your focus or any kinds of different effects from the different types of enemies that are engaged with you. And so dealing with the enemies is challenging. Getting up your dice, getting your dice ramped up fast as possible is an important part of it. Focus and guard and the way those elements interact with the game is another nice little touch that not only is fun, like having focus and being able to like, hey, I'm only rolling one die, but I have 3 focus saved up. I'm pretty sure I can take this enemy out. That is a satisfying feeling to have that control, but then also it helps when you have like those actions. Like this game is full of feel-good moments in the sense that sometimes you have these actions where you only needed 1 hit to do something, but you have 3 successes. What am I going to do with 3 successes? And that block doesn't even help me. But the upside is over here you can actually save those things, excess symbols you didn't utilize, roll over, which means that you don't feel like you wasted a roll. It does mean that the rolls average out across the course of the game. The bad rolls are hopefully mitigated by the fact that you had that awesome roll when you actually only needed 1 success that turn. And so there's this nice balance of the dice. I like the focus and block system and the way it engages with your dice rolls and evens things out, but also has those feel-good moments. It allows for lots of cards that give you focus and block, as well as the dice themselves. Speaking of cards, the abilities on cards, again, these characters have lots of fun cards. Each character does feel different as far as the way they play, as far as how much they're trying to, like you have over here, sneaking around the board a little bit more, or a little bit more offense. They have different ways that they have different play styles to the characters that do feel unique from the 4 characters I've played as. I don't actually know if the campaign has more than 4, so check out that if you want to see what else there might be. But the cards over here, the nice deck of relic cards and talent cards. You start with a starting talent, but then from there, having those is fun. You will have to refresh them, but that's another aspect to, again, do I focus on unlocking my attack to be able to roll better dice, or do I want to be able to unlock and pull back more cards as I'm leveling up? So the balance of where you upgrade your character is going to matter as you go through it. That the progressive unlocking, the progressive arc of your characters, as well as managing the boss. The boss is going to be facing off against you. How strong that boss is, it's not easy no matter what, but there is a range as far as how easy it's going to be, depending on how much you controlled the game. But that also means you have a choice as far as what are you doing on this board. Do you focus on trying to get all the upgrades to power yourself up, or are you spending more of your time and actions? Keeping in mind, you don't have a lot of actions. If you're playing a 2-character game, you only have 6 events in that deck. That means you only have 12 main actions amongst the characters to do all the things you need to do. That's a lot of stuff that you need to do. Are you able to manage that while also dealing with the enemies that are harassing you and trying to stay alive? Because dying in the first 2 acts, not the end of the world. You'll throw some extra tokens on the scheme cards, but you are alive. It's only in the 3rd act where your death actually is going to matter more, so it's being held back. But being held back is still part, again, everything matters as far as what you do. How you chase, holding back the boss versus powering yourself up is going to matter. The search deck, full of fun things, although there also are traps in the search deck. The first time I drew a trap, I didn't realize there were traps in the search deck, and that was not a fun little surprise, because I didn't look at the search deck first, because why would I do that? So drawing through, now, I guess now if you've watched this video, you now know there's traps in the search deck. There's a bunch of traps, different things that will make the boss scheme, deal damage to you, things like that are going to be there, and they were not a fun moment the first time I discovered them. Overall, a bunch of things that come together nicely as far as what I like. As far as what I don't like in the game, there's going to be a few small things and then one main area that holds back this game for me. First of all, I'll say that the main actions do mostly, at least for me, they felt more like attack and then the other 2. Like, it felt like most of the time, because of the enemies you're engaged with, attacking is going to be the most common thing you do. It's not the end of the world, but it did feel like I had the main action and then the 2 secondary main actions, but then I'm also dealing with ploy, which is subdivided into 3 actions and then move. So, like, you have this turn where it's like you have a move, you have an action from 3 actions and an action from 3 actions from ploy, but then I'm mostly attacking. Getting the sequence down did take. It's not the most complicated game. I do think the rulebook, prototype rulebook, so things might change. I do think the rulebook was not the clearest overall as far as the structure of how it all comes together. All the information's there. It wasn't the most intuitive for me, and it did mean that I learned the game, then played up and started going through it and had to keep referencing the rulebook for those first 2 or 3 rounds. But like by the time I was halfway through the first act, it was all coming together for me as I went through it. But again, main actions were attack and the other stuff. The enemy threat system, the way the enemies are engaged with you, this is something that Sadler brothers have done in a lot of their games, or at least a lot of the ones I've played. They've done it in Street Masters for sure. I think they did an Alter Quest. I can't totally remember. But they have this kind of like the enemies following you around. I don't love the system when it's combined with an actual board, meaning effectively, this is a similar system as you'll see in something like Marvel Champions, which is a game I love. You have your characters assigned to you. I've seen it done in other games as well, and for me, the line in the sand has always been, when the enemies are engaged with you, because there's not an actual board, I like that. That's how I know the enemy is fighting me. When the enemies are engaged with you and there's an actual board, I don't love that system. It feels a little abstracted as far as what are these enemies? Is that enemy harassing me, or is that enemy just in play? It feels a little bit, it works well from the balance of the game, but it doesn't feel as natural as a classic dungeon crawler where there's enemies. There's enemies that are there. I have to go ahead and face off and fight against the enemies and all that. And so instead there's your enemy and my enemy, but they aren't really your enemy and my enemy. They're just your handled enemy. It abstracts the game. And in fact, that aspect, that concept of the abstracted system, is the main thing that holds it back for me overall. That holds back. There's a lot of things I like about the Malice of Light. We'll come to it more in final thoughts, but that abstracted feel is present in a lot of areas. It's present in the way the enemies kind of are your enemy, but not really your enemy. You're just managing the cards and managing them, and they act after your turn, so it's yours, but not yours. It comes through on these tokens. Like these tokens over here, they're used for a dozen different things. They're used as counters on cards. These are right now roots, so the board is full of roots, which it's not obvious to me that the board is full of roots, but sure, the board is full of roots. It's also going to be like for any scenario board you're playing as, they're going to represent different things. So they're the roots over here, they're the mothers in the final scenario. It just means you have these generic tokens that are just the thing you have to deal with, which again abstracts it. And don't get me wrong, the balance here is I'm not advocating for having a full deck of little like root tokens and a full deck of mother tokens, whether they're 3D or printed on an image. On the one hand, this type of system makes the game cheaper. You don't have to manage more tokens. It makes the game easier to manage as far as not having a token box full of either 3D or tokens, and they're all different kinds. Like, I don't like that either when a game has that. But the end result is I guess I respect the balance from a creator side, that no matter what you're doing, there's a downside to it, but there still is a downside to it. It means I have these generic tokens that are abstracted and just represent the various things I need to deal with, which do change every single scenario, or even within the scenario that I'm engaged with. So overall, the system does feel, and even the boss, like the boss over here, the way the boss has like cards that are assigned to each hero, again, from a management standpoint, it all makes sense, but it's this weird aspect where it's like, okay, well, there's the boss, and there's the boss cards that have the boss health on them, and those cards are the thing I'm dealing with. Like, it abstracts that feeling of just having a big bad boss to deal with. So there's a lot of things I like, but that abstracted feeling of it is a little bit present as well. As far as I can see, others not liking, the snowball effect is definitely present in this game. You're going to have this aspect in the game where if you have a really good bunch of rolls the first round, if you are able to power yourself up, if you're able to mitigate all the boss's schemes, that will ramp up across the course of the game. So if you struggle in that first act, that will carry through, and if you have a really incredible first act, that will carry through. So if everything averages out, it's not the end of the world, but overall, like, I mean, again, like, the dice will average out if you roll them because of that focus and guard system. But on the other hand, if you just get poor rules most of the time, if you get a ton of shields and you can't really use them for anything, and you can't get the successes you need, that can snowball across the course of the game. Also, the enemy spawn system, like, you have these enemies that are spawning, but they kind of, whenever you draw a card with spawn, which I think like 3 of these over here, I think it's not all of them. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 of these cards are going to generate enemies over here. But those just generate at the closest spawn point to you. So it's that weird aspect where you do have more enemies entering the board system, which I do respect, but you also have them kind of just entering the board next to the hero. They happen to do that as they are engaged with you. So again, it kind of goes back to that abstract feel too. As far as final thoughts on the Malice of Light Adventures, you may have gotten this from, like, this is one of those weird ones where sometimes games are kind of just medium across the board. That's not the case here. What I have over here for me is I have a game that is full of elements that I really, really like, but then it also feels abstracted in a way that really I don't enjoy that quite as much. This has like highs and lows. It's not like, oh, it's good, it's nothing great, nothing bad. No, it's really good in the areas that are good, but then I really feel pulled out in the way the handling of the system is. I almost wish they had all the same, this is for me, not for you, because again, this is also very similar to the Street Masters as a game, and Street Masters was a well-loved game that many people really, really enjoyed, and I liked it for some of the same reasons. I feel that you have a lot of control over your character, and it feels very almost deterministic. Like, there's definitely luck in it, but there's a lot of agency over how the players are going to engage with the system in a way that allows you to feel very clever. and also the enemies in the system feel a bit abstracted in a way that pulls me a little bit out of it. So it's both things I really enjoy and things that pull me out a bit. I'm going to come in at a 3.5 out of 5 on this one. I wrestled with the rating wise because it's definitely for sure at least a 3.5, but like I kind of wanted to give it a 4 because the things I really like. Like my turns when I'm doing the things, when I'm managing the enemies, when I'm trying to figure out how much I can get done. I play a search card, I move an extra area, I then play a relic card or a talent or whatnot, and I get to move an extra area, and before you know it, I'm across the board when you usually can only move one, and somehow I moved 4 that turn, and those turns feel really cool. So there's a lot of good things going on here, but then I have to go through the cycle of activating my row of threats over here, which pulls me a bit out of the way a typical dungeon crawler is. This feels like it has half dungeon crawler and half management that's abstracted within a dungeon crawler system. So it's a 3.5 out of 5, things I really like and things that are also not so much. As far as other game recommendations, I mentioned it already, but Marvel Champions is definitely a game that's going to, if you like this kind of dealing with enemies, if you don't mind the cards in front of you, and again, I don't even mind it in a system that doesn't actually have a board in front of me. Marvel Champions is a game that I adore and highly recommend. And if you're looking for one of my favorite dungeon crawlers, Massive Darkness is definitely an excellent one. It is worth noting, Simon the publisher, definitely going through their own things, but at the end of the day, if you can find a copy in retail or a used copy, Massive Darkness is still an absolutely excellent dungeon crawler that I highly recommend. And I mentioned that Allplay is a channel sponsor. If you go to allplay.com, you can find games both from Allplay themselves as well as their partner publishers. And if you're in the US, you can get $4 flat rate shipping. And while they don't really have a lot of dungeon crawlers, if you like the dungeon crawler theme, they do have Torchlit, which is a trick-taking game with a dungeon crawler theme that surprisingly works even though you would think that it doesn't. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.